Test, test.
And we're recording.
Oh, yeah, that's a good test.
Record.
Is everybody ready?
Might
as well
sort
be.
of.
Maybe.
Wow, resounding for a Monday.
This is the AT Banter podcast, a balanced and entertaining look at assistive technology, accessibility, and its importance in people's lives. Join Rob Minot, Ryan Fleury, and Steve Barclay as they banter with people around the world about anything and everything regarding assistive technology and the disability community. Now, on with the show.
Hey, and welcome to yet another episode of AT Banter.
Banter.
That was such a Monday cowbell. And the cowbell's hurting today.
I'm gonna try that again. Banter. There we go.
Much better. I am Rob Minot, today joined by Mr. Ryan Fleury.
Hello.
And, oh man, this is going to be a fun show. And Steve Barclay.
Hola.
Yes, it is Monday. We're sitting here in the Guitar Dungeon recording. What are we doing today, Ryan?
Today is a news show.
News.
That's right. It is our, what are we doing this monthly?
Isn't there a
monthly
Blues
news?
Clues news song or something? Steve, sing the song.
Or don't. We can do any copyright strikes?
No, I think you're thinking of the mail song.
Oh, is it? Mail?
Yeah, I don't think there's a news song.
Okay.
I thought you'd be...
Sing the mail song.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail. Mail.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, do we have any mail though?
No.
I'm gonna cut that up. I'm gonna use that as our when we do have mail.
No, that is from Blues Clues. I think we could probably get sued for using that on a regular basis.
Hey, we get email. Woohoo!
It's a remake. What's the copyright against remakes?
I don't know.
All right. I'll look into that. Yes, that's right. It's our monthly news show?
Yep.
Where we just talk about stuff.
And
Yep.
there is stuff to talk about.
There's a few stuffs to talk about. I have to admit, though, full disclosure, I'm woefully unprepared today because I've been dealing with a terrible computer issue for like the past week to 10 days.
Speaking of which, did you get it sorted out with the Windows 10 disk?
Well, I haven't been able to do that yet because
okay.
I'm working on this little side project and I can't really reformat my computer until then. But yeah, no, I've been caught in this terrible update loop.
Oh,
for
no.
Windows. Yeah, well, what's happened is the latest fall creators update that came out.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, my computer does not want to take it. When it first came out, I tried to install it, and what happens is it goes about 3/4 of the way through the update, and then it hangs, and I have to hard reboot the machine, and then it rolls it back to my previous version of Windows, and that's where I'm at. And so that was fine until recently, when some of the Windows security updates needs that fall's creator update, and really started harassing me. Like every hour it was going to download the update and try to install it if I left my computer like for any amount of time. So I've probably downloaded that damn thing like 20 times now, and it hangs my computer every time, so I can't really do anything on my computer. And so I tried to do a reset of the PC, and that didn't work. And I tried to do a complete format, and that didn't work either.
Ooh.
So I'm thinking maybe it's a hardware issue. I don't know. Rick gave me a Windows 10 disk to try to do a complete clean install of Windows 10, and then see if it'll take the update then. But I don't know what I'm going to do, because you can't, even if you turn off, like I went into the services and turned off Windows Update, but when it's tied to those security updates, you can't turn those off. Like they will not let you run a PC without the latest security updates. And if those security updates are tied to the latest version of Windows, forget it. So it's either that or I might have to roll back my PC and to Windows 7.
Have you Googled the problem? Or other people having this?
Yeah, I did. I tried to. Not you, Google. You didn't even say okay, Google. No, see, we didn't say that.
He just did.
Well, I did, but he didn't. Go back to sleep. It's Monday. Yeah, I did. I tried to look it up, and I couldn't really find much in the way of any information. Although Rick did mention that he looked it up, and he seemed to find some Asus hardware problems.
Yeah.
So it could very well be it's a hardware issue.
There are computers that just won't take the Windows 10 update.
Yeah, and I don't know what those people do. Like, to be honest, like, because if you know, Microsoft is serving you that update and trying to do that update all the time.
There's probably, well, if you're running Windows 7, Gibson Research has a tool called Never 10 you can install, and it'll never prompt you to install Windows 10.
Well, you won't have that
But
issue
if you're on
anymore.
Windows 10, there's probably a registry hack. You can turn that off.
Have you gone to the Asus website and made sure all of your BIOS and everything else is up to date?
No, I have not.
That might be a place to start.
Oh, it's a good suggestion. Yeah. So once I'm done this project, anyways, I'll be able to get it sorted out. But right now, so I don't have any of my bookmarks or anything. I didn't have my the Twitter account. Everything is was I'm basically working from a clean machine. So the point of that story was I'm woefully unprepared. That's my excuse.
Not a good thing you have your smartphone in front of you.
Yeah, whatever.
Indeed. And we can look at links.
Anyways, all right. Well, let's start talking about this story. It's a local story, so people who are outside,
British Columbia
may not find this terribly interesting, but it could happen to you. Trust us.
And if you don't think it can, then just fast forward until you hear the sound of the cowbell. So back in, I believe it was 2014, CNIB handed off their audiobook library to a organization called CELA, C-E-L-A, Canadian Equitable Library Association. Is that right?
I believe so.
And it's essentially turning the CELA library into a national project. In order to get access to the CELA library, provinces and library systems have to buy in and pay a certain amount in to help operate the library.
And this is all audiobooks, is that right?
This is all audiobooks. Well, no, it's not all audiobooks because they also provide Braille books as well.
Large print?
It's alternative format. I believe they do large print as well. So they do a variety of formats. Not all provinces bought into it. British Columbia being one that kind of did it piecemeal. So there were about 17 library districts that paid for it, and that provided funding to about 80% of the province. The remaining 20, CNIB had, I guess, some kind of bridge funding, which would provide funding for the other ones who didn't buy into it. But that is now expiring. And as a result, districts that are not paying into it will no longer have access to that library. So this woman who lives in Port Moody, her library system is one of the ones that has not paid into it. And she is now circulating a petition to try and convince them to fund it. There's also talk that the Education Ministry may fund access across the province for the CELA library, but that's still, I guess, in negotiation as well. So her concern is she's losing access to the CELA library. And then, of course, there's a competing library service called NELS, N-N-E-L-S, which... what does that stand for?
I think it's the National Equitable Library Service.
Who runs that?
National Network for Equitable Library Services. And that was started at the same time in BC through the BC Libraries Cooperative. But they've got significantly fewer titles. Right now, I think they've got somewhere around 30,000 titles. CELA has considerably more than that.
Well, who runs that one?
It's run by a BC Library Cooperative.
Well, see, that seems insane.
See, that's
to
the
me.
problem. It should be all publicly run, just like your public libraries.
Well, yeah. What's
One
the point of
library
having two
system.
of these things?
Yeah.
One that's not as good as the other.
Yeah, it doesn't.
They're cannibalizing each other.
It doesn't make a lot of sense, and I don't know why there's two different ones and who got whose nose out of joint and so forth. But anyways, BC Libraries decided they were going to go it on their own. They now their library is available across the country. I think there might be a couple of provinces where it's not available. Ontario and Quebec are not involved in the NELS thing. But
See, that's nuts.
yeah, but NELS only provides audiobooks, to my knowledge. They don't provide any other alternative format. They don't do Braille. They don't do large print, so far as I know. So there are some differences between the services, and there's good reasons why somebody would want to maintain their CELA access, because more titles, more alternative formats.
Well, but this seems insane to me. Like this is a huge hole with the service. I mean, how long did CNIB have the library for and ran it? I mean,
Years.
years and years,
Well,
right?
probably, yeah, right from the outset, I imagine.
And I'm assuming that the reason why they gave it over to the government was that they were just having problems funding it. Is that?
Well, this is a service that was being used all across the country, and it was being expanded out. People who were not visually impaired, such as people with dyslexia, other learning disabilities, were also accessing this library. So it didn't really make sense for CNIB, the National Institute for the Blind, to be funding this themselves and bearing all the costs themselves. It really should have been an audio and alternative format library run by the government, either provincially or federally. So to me, it makes sense that it got spun out.
That's true.
It was a drain on CNIB and their core services. So, I guess the big $1 million question is who's putting in the $1 million. So,
well, it's the old adage: if you want to screw something up, give it to the government to run with, and they'll. But I mean, but why did the BC government decide that this wasn't a service? Well, I don't know why I'm asking you, but I'm just putting the question out there. It makes you wonder, like, why did the government just not decide that this was something that they didn't think was worth funding?
Yeah, I didn't follow the politics of it. I think when I believe what happened is when BC was originally asked to buy in, they looked at the price tag that they were being asked to pay and went, "Whoa, no, we're not going to pay that kind of money."
Yeah.
And then a bunch of them decided to strike off on their own, create an alternative to it. I guess because they figured they could do it cheaper.
That's awful. I mean, that's awful. I mean, 20%, that's a lot of people that are not going to have access to the service that rely on this service.
Well, and access to the amount of books that are available. Like Steve said, I think the NELS service, like he said, has about 30,000 titles. The CELA library, I think a couple 100,000 titles. So your variety to choose from is much, much larger with the CELA system.
Yeah.
And it should be funded just like any public library. Why do we need all these systems?
Or then, you know what? Let create a loophole where somebody who's living in Port Moody can get a Vancouver library card so that they can actually access these services. I mean, at least do that. If you're not going to, or give this other 20% of the libraries just, let them in. Like give them access to the service. I know it's unfair to the 80% that did pay in, but at the same time, the long and the short of it is if you've got thousands of people who rely on the service that aren't going to have access to these books, that's just not right.
Yeah, realistically, it's probably hundreds, but all the same,
I was being dramatic, Steve. Come on, work with me. Millions.
Sorry. Gazillions of people are being robbed of their right to read. Yeah. Anyways, by hook or by crook, somebody's got to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't. It's frustrating. So, yeah, I should spin that story off. Oh wait, do we need the cowbell sound? New story.
Hang on. All right, let's get that a little louder.
There we go.
There you
Boom. Yeah, there's a related story. Well, not a related story, but it's also a local story about TransLink and
What?
news.
Another local story?
I know.
Another local. Okay.
Okay,
guys,
well, wait, so
sorry,
ignore
sorry
the
about
cowbell.
That. Yeah, ignore that last cowbell. So fast forward to the next cowbell.
Okay. We promised that one. We'll be talking about something not local.
It'll be more relevant.
No, TransLink announced last week that they are ready to launch their hands-free access system for people with disabilities.
They're fair gates.
The fare gates on our SkyTrain system.
Woo, how many years has that been?
2. I want to say 2. It could be 3 by now, though. So, kudos to that. So, for people who...
No kudos.
Okay.
Absolutely no kudos for TransLink.
That was a slightly sarcastic kudo.
Jesus.
Kudo.
No, so for people who may be unaware of what's been going on, they 3-4 years ago, I don't even know how long it's been. The TransLink put in these fare gates at our elevated train system, and
let's go back a little bit further just to give some people context.
Okay, go for it.
So TransLink is a body of appointed people who oversee the transit system and the development of roadworks in the greater Vancouver area. They get taxes from things like gasoline and probably some from property tax and so forth. I'm not exactly sure where all the funding comes from, but they're appointed, they're non-elected, and they make all the decisions about how our money is being spent for roads and buses. Now, SkyTrain, when it first came in, it was brought in 1986 for the World Expo that was here, and it was a big deal because it was this beautiful overhead rail system, and pretty fancy, pretty nice, pretty comfy to travel on. It's a beautiful system.
Yeah, think of it as a monorail, basically.
Yeah, but quite expensive compared to a lot of other options. So it was, roundly debated before it went in, and it finally got put in. Then, as they started to expand on it, the debate cropped up again. Hey, do we want to continue doing this? Because there's cheaper options. We could do more with less. But at the end of the day, everybody kept opting for SkyTrain. Now, when SkyTrain was originally built, you walked up, you bought a ticket, you walked onto the SkyTrain, you went to where you were going, you got off. Then they introduced this theory of zones. So Vancouver on SkyTrain covered 3 different zones, and you had to buy the right number of zones on your ticket to get from point A to point B. So people were sort of abusing that. Plus, there were people who were just not buying tickets at all and were just walking onto SkyTrain.
Yeah, you want to add that. I mean, there was no turnstile system. You just walked right on. You basically, they relied on
the honor system.
The honor system, and they would have like initially it was just TransLink employees doing random ticket checks, and then they brought in the TransLink police.
Yeah, then they created TransLink police because they couldn't have just regular transit employees walking around putting themselves at risk and getting in confrontations with people. They wanted trained police, so they hired a whole bunch of cops, and they're properly trained cops, and now the cops are going around and checking tickets. Well, then they decided that, there's got to be a better way. Like, how can we actually get people to pay to get on the SkyTrain?
Well, we should add, though, too. The transit police would do ticket checks, and if you were found riding the SkyTrain without a ticket, you'd get a ticket.
Right.
It was like 100 and I don't know.
You'd get a fine.
Bucks. Yeah. You'd get basically a fine. But that fine had no teeth at all.
You didn't have to pay it.
No, you didn't have to pay it. There was, and for the longest time, they weren't even tracking who had tickets. They were just relying on people just paying them.
Again, the honor system.
Yeah.
So they were losing a lot of money that way.
Yeah. So they figured we're losing millions of dollars on these fare evaders. So they decided they were going to look into this. So they sent representatives from TransLink all over the world to places with major transit systems. They sent them to England, they sent them to Japan, they sent them to Tokyo, sent them all over the place on the taxpayer's dime to investigate what could we possibly do for this. Now, that annoyed the crap out of me right off the start because I think that could have been done with phone calls. Hey, Japan, what's going on? Oh, we have fare gates. You know? Hey, England, what's going on? Oh, well, you know, we use those jolly fare gates. You know? But no, they had to fly everywhere and investigate it personally. So then they came back and they hatched this plan for fare gates. Well, they couldn't just do it with, you know, an inexpensive turnstile or something like that. No, it had to be RFID, radio frequency identifier tags in every ticket, and they had to put in these automated fare gates. The cost for putting in this system was vastly more than they were losing in fare evasion, and the maintenance on this system is vastly more than they were losing on fare evasion. It was simply the dumbest decision ever.
Agreed.
They could have just left the gates off, left it on the honor system, and had a little bit of checks here and there. But no. Instead, they had to come up with this Cadillac solution. Well, they installed their Cadillac solution, and guess what? People with disabilities couldn't get through it.
Yeah. So
People in wheelchairs are stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the problem.
assistance.
Here's the problem when they put it in. So basically, they put it in, and the place where you need to tap the card is, I don't know, probably. Well, it's fairly high up. So
Yeah, it's elevated,
so
and it's fairly small target. It's only about a circle around maybe 5 inches in diameter.
yeah. So I mean, essentially, somebody who's in a wheelchair has mobility issues. They may not be able to take their ticket out and put it, tap it in the right spot. And so they put in the fare gates, and then it seems like they realized this.
Yeah.
So
nice research, TransLink. Well done.
So they put these gates in, and for probably 6 months, they were like, "Damn, what?" Well, they couldn't get the system working properly to begin with. So
it was taking too long. It wasn't fast enough.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of problems. So they actually put in the gates and then just left them open for the longest time. And then they realized they had this access issue. The people with disabilities were having trouble, actually tapping the cards. So they worked on it for a while, it seems. And then one day they just decided, you know what? Screw it. We're just going to close the gates, and we'll just say, hey, if you're having access issues, call this number, and an attendant will, come and help you open the gate.
Because everybody in a powered wheelchair has a phone and can dial it at their convenience any old time, right? We all know that, sure.
Well, yeah. And I mean, not only that, they have to wait 10, 15 minutes for someone to show up and get there. It's not like there are
in the pouring rain.
Yeah, it's not like there are attendants at every single SkyTrain station. So it's been a huge issue, and they just went they just went ahead and closed those gates, and that was their solution for years. For years since they closed those gates. That's just been good enough for them. So fast forward to today and the story from last week, and now you'll see why our kudos was sarcastic, is that they have finally implemented a solution for this after 2 years, where I guess it's still RFID technology, but I'm assuming that it's more of a distance thing, like
it's a stronger reader,
right?
It can just read at a greater distance.
So they are, yes, but still they're still rolling that out. Like this announcement is just basically, hey, we figured out how to do this. They're still talking.
Nice
it's going to be next summer sometime before they really start rolling it out.
Yeah.
Which is insane to me. That's it's going to have been close to, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years that this solution has just been, it hasn't been a solution. It's that solution has been in the works, and that's crazy to me. For this combined with the story about the SELA library is infuriating.
Yeah.
Now we're pissed. We used to be tired. We were tired earlier, but now we're just angry.
Well, and all it would have taken for TransLink is to reach out to some of the advocacy groups, even CNIB, and say, "Hey guys, let's have a meeting and see how we can, solve this." And I don't know if that ever happened.
Well, there were definitely people who were consulting with TransLink early on around the Fairgate thing. I know one visually impaired guy who was quite active with it, but obviously they didn't pay a lot of attention to people
Right.
with physical disabilities.
Yeah.
Because the issue has never really been an issue of people with visual impairments, other than knowing where you need to tap your card.
Right.
But for physical disabilities, it's been a joke right out of the gate. No pun intended.
Yeah, but I mean, look, their history with accessibility has not been great across the board. I mean,
No.
even vision related. Look how long they took to put down those tactile strips
Right.
along the tracks.
Yeah, to warn people where the edge of the track was.
How many people had to fall in there before they actually took action?
There were a bunch of people who fell in there.
They never really, looked at accessibility when they built any of those stations or anything, and that just went, unserviced for years.
Well, and the other thing, that I've heard on the news in the past, 6 to 8 weeks from people who used the transit system is, why doesn't TransLink have an app that people can look at, see where systems are down, see where trains are delayed, get update information all in one place? TransLink doesn't have an app. There's no way to communicate with TransLink.
Really?
Yeah, there's no app.
There's a TransLink app.
I think they have an app, but I don't
not
think
from
it
what I
does
understand.
that.
Yeah,
I think it's just
maybe it's just a buses.
I think it's like a trip planner thing.
But it does. There's no announcements as to train delays or outages or. That's just something I heard on the news in the last little while, that they need to come up with this app so they can keep their.
It might be that they need to come up with a
keep up to
better
date.
app that actually does all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, TransLink's my favorite. Can you tell?
Well, I bet you we could talk about ICBC for a long time too.
Oh, why? What do ICBC do this weekend?
$1 billion in debt.
Well, that's
In the
because
first 9 months of the year.
that's because the previous government, was basically plundering it.
Yeah.
They've been plundering it for years to balance their budgets. Oh, look, we balanced our budget.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, your insurance rates are going to go up. That's not a tax.
Up
No.
and up and up.
We're just going to rename this podcast the Grumpy Old Man Podcast. We're just going to complain about stuff.
Well, how about Trump cutting Medicare?
Oh, come on. Don't get him started.
Canceling Meals on Wheels. And
No, but I mean, it's frustrating that, we're, and I'm sure that every locality, all the listeners, whoever's listening to this, I'm sure, your local government is dropping the ball in terms of accessibility somewhere as well. I don't know. I just like to, I'd like to think that,
Mm-hmm.
BC, Canada, we're better than a lot of places, but
Nope.
We're just not. Like,
We
they're
are
just-
not.
and it's frustrating.
hey, was somebody in the news recently, was it Norway, that was talking about accessibility? And
Is that the story I sent you about how
maybe
their entire transit system is now?
that's probably
completely
what it was.
accessible?
Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
It's like, TransLink, pick up the phone.
Yeah, they clearly didn't talk to the guy in Norway. They just talked to Japan and England. Or Steve just didn't want to do a Norwegian accent.
No, it's fine. I can do Norwegian.
But they didn't get called.
That's right.
No one asked us about our transit system. We could have told them in a phone call.
But who wants to go to Norway in February?
Oh, wait, did I send that to you on Facebook, maybe?
No, I think it was email, but I don't remember. It was a little while ago. It's all right. Rob can find it, link to it in the show notes.
Yes, I
Yeah, I
can.
just don't remember the details of it, which
Yeah.
is a bigger issue.
What was the crux of it? Maybe we can
Norway's train system being fully accessible,
Norway
or their transit system.
I don't really see any news stories about Norway.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if it's even Norway. Could have been Finland for all we know.
No,
Just make up a story.
Norway seems to stick in my mind.
Holland,
Maybe Denmark.
Denmark.
Oh,
Denmark.
for Christ.
Look for Denmark.
Giving kudos to the wrong country. A bunch of Norwegian people are like, what are they talking about?
We don't have a train system. We have Uber.
That's right. Let that be a lesson to everybody. Don't come here for news or any sort of accurate information.
That's right. We just wing stuff at the wall, see what
right.
sticks.
Fake news. Fake news.
That's right. We are the epitome of fake news. But we admit it.
No turning up under Denmark.
Oh, well.
Anyway, well, I'm sure there's a country out there
Yeah.
that gets the AT Banter brand of approval.
Yeah, I think the lesson here is when we send articles to each other that are newsworthy, we should probably keep them all in one place.
Good idea.
Maybe we'll create a
Okay.
Dropbox folder for that.
Yeah, it's a good idea. All right. Anyways, what are we talking about next? Let's see. Let's bring up the list here.
Let's talk about the HomePod.
Okay, hold on. Wait, Dad.
My poor remotes.
Yeah, really. It's gonna be like Linda's gonna be like, "Why is the TV remote not working?"
That's right.
I think the drumstick's right beside your foot on the ground, right?
Which foot? This foot?
Your left foot. Yay!
All right. Oh, you can't even reach it. Clearly, we're ones to talk about accessibility. You haven't made the cowbell accessible. Okay, you want to talk about the HomePod?
Yeah, let's talk about the HomePod, seeing as
Yeah.
it's going to be released on the 9th.
Okay, so what was the big news last week? I guess basically that they've started taking pre-orders for it, right?
I think pre-orders started on Friday.
Yep.
It's got its FCC approval, so you can start ordering it.
All right. Well, tell people who may not know what the heck the HomePod is. Tell them what it is.
The HomePod is Apple's answer to your speaker, like the Google Homes or the Amazon Echoes, but it really falls short.
Okay. Well,
Falls short. What do you mean it falls short?
It falls short.
I heard that it had amazing audio quality.
Supposedly, it does have amazing audio quality, but there are news articles and reviews saying you can't ask it random questions like you can the other assistants.
Really?
Siri won't answer you. You cannot also use it with a Google phone. You can't use it with Android. There's only even certain Apple devices that are supporting it. So you have to have at least the minimum of the iPad 5th generation. I think the iPod minimum is 6, and of course anything newer. And the latest iPod generation. It doesn't support Bluetooth at this point in time, but either did Google Home when it first came out. So in order to use it as a speaker, you need to use AirPlay, which is built in. Which is fine if you're an Apple fan person and you have AirPlay on your phone and you subscribe to Apple Music, because it only works with Spotify if you're playing it from your phone first and then you AirPlay it to the HomePod.
right.
So you can't say, "Hey Siri, play whatever on Spotify." It won't work. You got to play it from your phone first and then AirPlay it to the speaker.
Now, okay, so is the fact that you can't use any Android device at all with it, is that a bit like, is it possible to do it the other way around? Like if you have a home, are you able to use your iPhone with the home?
Sure, you can install I believe the Home app.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So that is a big deal. So that's
It is, and I think for Apple people, I was actually going to try to get Dave Nason on the show again today, and then just kind of let it go to kind of get his opinion, being from AppleViz. $400 speaker or $349 US that can't answer random questions, doesn't have Bluetooth, or Bluetooth isn't enabled at launch. Doesn't work with Spotify unless you're, casting from your phone. It seems to have a lot of limitations at launch.
Okay, well, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a minute and just say that, but that's not necessarily unusual for a first generation device. The Home, the Echo, they had their limitations too when they first launched.
They did, but Apple's now had 3 years of watching Amazon, 2 years of watching what Google's doing. They could have came out with a HomePod at launch with this stuff already ready to go.
True. But it could be perhaps that they knew that they were making a device for a specific audience, namely people who wanted to stay within the Apple ecosystem. They knew they were sort of preaching to the choir, so maybe they didn't feel that they needed to build any of that stuff in.
I think if you look at the news articles too, it doesn't. You can't use it to ask Siri what's on your calendar. Some basic functionality is missing as well.
Right.
So I don't know if you have some of the news articles there that I had sent you links to.
Yeah, well, I did read through some of the reviews that you sent.
I don't know. At launch, it seems pretty limiting. I think, like you say, for the Apple fanboys who already subscribe to Apple Music, who maybe don't need Spotify, don't need the calendar integration, and are fine, airplaying stuff from their phone to their speaker. If they've got a supported phone or iPad device, great, more power to them. It's another speaker that people have, the choice to buy. But I think at the same time, the Amazon Echo Dot, $49, the Google Home Mini, $79. There's other choices. Like I was saying to you on the weekend, I have a Google Home Mini connected to my Chromecast, which is connected to my home theater.
Yeah.
So I've got the best audio I can have in here with those two devices, which are, under $200 combined. And I have the full power of the Google Assistant.
Well, and again, I think look, I'm being in the Google ecosystem now because I have, I'm in the same way. I have a home now, and I have a Chromecast, and I've got an Android phone, and I love it. I love being tied together all in one and being able to sync any device with anything. I can switch between what I'm playing on. It's great. So I can understand if you're an Apple person, if you have a Mac, if you have an iPhone, I can understand the appeal of wanting to bring in a device and stay within that ecosystem.
But it has to be a supported device.
I think the main problem with the HomePod is that it's just too expensive. They need some variations on this thing.
I don't think it's too expensive because the Google Home Max is $400. It's going to have the high quality as well.
Wait! This is their standard?
Yes, this is their HomePod. This is their standalone.
Oh, this isn't
speaker.
even the big one.
This is the big one. This is the Google Home Max competitor. This is their $349 speaker array that you can put in a corner. It detects the sound and the walls.
But my point is that for somebody who's not an audiophile that doesn't care about sound, they need an $80 version.
So buy an Echo Dot or a Google Home Mini.
But that's Apple needs 3 versions of this thing, like Home and Amazon. They need a cheap one. They need a sort of a mid-range one, and then they need an expensive one. Starting the party with the HomePod, with this thing that somebody who's living in an apartment, what the hell do they need with a speaker like that?
Let me just play the role of the Apple enthusiast here.
Can you do an accent?
Does it have an Apple logo on it?
Probably.
Good enough.
Okay, come on. Okay.
Because Siri is baked into it, and it sounds like it's half baked. You can't even say, "Hey Siri, what's the population of New York?"
Well, we know
you can't ask it a question.
Yeah, but we know that Siri has never been the greatest. It was the first out of the gate, but it's never really been the greatest in terms of being a useful digital assistant.
The one thing we have to give Apple much credit for is they say that all your communication with your HomePod is encrypted. So security to Apple has always been a high priority. With Google Assistant, Amazon Echo, supposedly, I guess that stuff's not encrypted, so it's out there for the world to hear.
Oh, wait a minute. What? Wait. Does it mean my Google Home has been listening to everything I've been saying all weekend?
Supposedly.
Oh, good.
No, they say it's not. They say it's listening for the keyword, right? But your phone's listening to you right now too. That's why you talk about Gillette razors. Tomorrow you'll have a Facebook ad for Gillette razors.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah.
They're listening. So I'm going to have to download all my Google data and actually see what I've said over the last 2 years.
Here's what pisses me off about Google. I want to be able to rename my Google because I hate saying the word Google.
Yeah.
I realized I can't say Google properly.
Right.
It just turns into a bit of a mush in the middle.
Yeah.
Google. 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 Especially when you had a few tequila shots. Then forget it. Hey, Google. Okay, Google. Play a Black Rose.
Wow.
That's not at all what happened this weekend at all.
Not at all. So I don't know. I think the Apple fan base, it's going to be interesting to see if they adopt it or not.
The long and the short of it, and trying to play this impartial, because we have been called out for being a little harsh on Apple. Sure. But to be honest, I mean, it does sound like they have an uphill battle in terms of entering the market with a digital assistant speaker like this, and it sounds like they're kind of behind. The first generation of this thing is just not what people were expecting. And it sounds like they're kind of underwhelmed by it. Is that sort of the crux of what you've been reading? Yeah,
other than, the quality of the audio, which is supposed to be quite stellar. I keep coming back to Apple's been watching what the competitors have been doing for the last couple of years, and they come out with this at that price point. It was just like, why would anybody spend that money?
Well, and especially if somebody is just looking at trying this out, from an AT perspective, if there are people out there that think that this could prove to be very useful in their day-to-day life, I mean, our recommendation would be, by all means, buy a mini or buy a dot that's cheap. You can try it out and see how it works for you for $40.
Well, if the HomePod does at some point soon integrate with their HomeKit and be able to use your voice to control your lights and stuff like that, then hey, sure, buy a HomePod.
But but honestly, like the Google, any of the Google devices, or the Google and the Amazon will both do that as well. Yep. That's not something that the HomePod is going to be exclusive.
Right, but it would be tied into the Apple ecosystem because HomeKit is Apple's own automation system, right? So there are devices that work with HomeKit that also work with the Amazon Echo and the Google Assistants. So if you're in the Apple ecosystem, you have an Apple TV, you've got the HomePod, you may just want to be buying devices that work with HomeKit and stick with that ecosystem.
I don't know. I got to be honest, though. I really don't think Apple had any... I think they looked at this and went, we're too far behind in this. Siri isn't strong enough to be able to compete with the Google Assistant. So you know what? Let's just make something for Apple enthusiasts. Let's just make something for people who are already invested in Apple products. We're not even going to try to compete because honestly, a $350 device as opposed to the Home is at most, I think $170.
Well, the Home Max.
Canadian.
If you want the Max. The Home Max is $399.
Right, but you can
that's the one that competes with the HomePod.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because that's the better speaker that you can sit in the corner and it does its array thing and tells you.
I see.
Here's a wall. There's a wall. Everywhere a wall.
Which is, I don't know. Come on, who needs that? Who really needs that?
Steve needs that.
Well, I might need that, but
but again, living in an apartment, do you really need that?
No, heck no. I got telling my Google Home to turn it down all the time.
And if you really wanted to, you could buy a set of pretty decent quality speakers and attach a Chromecast audio to them, and then cast audio from your Google Home to the better quality speakers.
Yeah,
for still a lot cheaper.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's an interesting market right now.
So any of our Apple listeners out there, if you buy a HomePod, email us and tell us your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'd like to know.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to hear from somebody who actually got their hands on one when they come. So when are they being released?
February 9th.
February 9th. So there you go. Not too far away. It'll be very interesting to see what the mass reception is.
Yep.
Because most of the reviews that I've read, people are kind of underwhelmed.
You think there will be lineups at the Apple stores for these things?
Maybe. I mean, there's always a lineup for any. I mean, certainly not like when they release an actual phone. But I think certainly there's going to be interest in this thing. I mean, people who have lots of money, and
it's hard to say because there was also another news article that talked about the iPhone 10 and how Apple isn't seeing the results they were hoping for, so they're cutting back on their manufacturing the iPhone 10 because it wasn't as popular as they hoped it would be.
Huh.
So probably I think everybody bought the iPhone 8 and they're already working on the next iPhone 10X or 11 or whatever it's going to be called. So yeah, they're cutting back on the iPhone 10 manufacturing.
Go figure.
Maybe it's that Face ID thing.
Well, I did hear something about the next version of iOS that they're working on, I think for the spring, and how there's going to be battery throttling in it. Did you guys hear about that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I don't know what, because we know all about the whole battery gate, the battery controversy. I guess they're building something in there that actually makes that an option that you can control somehow. So, at least Apple, learning from their mistakes.
Bonus.
So, end on a positive note. And now that everyone's ears are bleeding, somebody who has a HomePod in the corner, you just blew off a bunch of their roofing tiles. Yeah, we should. I'm not even going to introduce this. Somebody else take this one. It's too big for me.
What is it?
I don't even know what it is.
What do you the big news? Oh, the big merger.
Big news in the industry.
Oh,
well, this
one that stunned Mr. Barkley.
Okay, well, this might be a little bit too inside baseball for the majority of our listeners because it is a little bit, it has to do with the manufacturer and it's a little bit behind the sne's, but we'll run with it anyways.
No, it's out in the open now.
So. Yeah. Last week, some fairly big industry news came down the pipe. I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Steve Barkley, who can illuminate us.
Well, last week we sat down. We recorded a session with John Dibble from Enhanced Vision Systems.
Hey, John.
And John talked about the business and what it was like at Enhanced Vision. And then John and I went away and ran up to Whistler for a day of snowboarding, which I might add, I should never, ever, ever try and do again.
Stick to diving.
Yeah, I will. I will stick to après everything: après ski, après snowboard. Yeah, I'm good at the drinking parts, not so good at the falling down and then getting back up again parts. Anywho, so yeah, we had a nice day up on the slopes, and then sent him back down, took him to the airport, sent him home. He got home, and that night his boss called him to tell him that Enhanced Vision Systems had been acquired by VFO, the same company that now owns Freedom Scientific, AI Squared,
Paciello Group.
That's right, Paciello Group.
GW Micro.
Which
they discontinued.
Yeah, it's kind of phased out. And Optelec.
Optelec, yes.
So between those three brands, Freedom Scientific, Optelec, and Enhanced Vision Systems, that seriously makes them by far and away the biggest CCTV company, I would say, in the world at this point.
Well, what about blindness as well? Would you just CCTVs and low vision?
Well, they didn't acquire anything blindness related through Enhanced Vision Systems. Everything EVS does is around low vision.
I see.
But in North America, EVS had the biggest piece of market share for the low vision industry. So this vaults VFO to top spot like immediately, and so there's been obviously a lot of discussion about it. When I originally posted up on my Facebook page about it, there were some pretty negative comments, and they're right along the same lines as we've been hearing from people, about a lack of competition, and people who are Windows users were outraged when Windows got phased out.
Yep.
They didn't like it when AI Squared got acquired. There's a lot of people who see this as being very concerning. But there's still competition out there. There's, on the screen reader side, there's still the Dolphin product, plus NVDA is a very serious contender these days as a free product.
Narrator's getting better.
A lot of people have switched over to Apple products that have a perfectly functional screen reader in it. On the low vision side, they own both Magic and ZoomText now. I imagine one of them will probably get phased out at some point. But there's still the Dolphin Supernova magnifier, plus built-in magnification in both Windows and iOS as well. So there's competition on that front. And on the CCTV front, there are a ton of manufacturers who are starting to make inroads into the North American market. So there's a number of different Asian manufacturers who have started to come in with fairly low cost, and maybe I think some would argue lower quality as well, products, but that's not always the case. So there's there are some market forces at work, and there is still going to be competition in the industry, but this definitely gives VFO a big leg up for the time being, at least.
Well, I wonder what happens with their dealer network too. I'm sure time will tell. The calls will start going out. VFO is probably going to trim down the number of dealers that they have, just like they did when they bought, Freedom Scientific. And
yeah, I don't really know. I don't know what to expect on that front. I mean, what I've been told at this point is that they're going to maintain EVS as a separate brand,
right?
And they're going to have it operated separately. They're going to keep the EVS name on everything. And if that happens, then maybe they will maintain their existing EVS dealer network. But I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's really hard to say what the thinking is here, and what the long-term plan is.
Well, I wonder, the other two big boys in I guess North America, the HIMS and the Humanwares, have probably took a step back and go, wow, now what do we do?
Well, but yeah, but I mean, those are also fairly blindness heavy, and it doesn't sound like that's necessarily the fish that VFO are going after.
Not yet. Humanware's got companies around the world as well, right? So they do low vision products as well as blindness.
Yeah, and by no means are they the only company out there trying to acquire other companies. There's there've been a couple of companies who've taken runs at Eschenbach. The Eschenbach distributes a lot of optical magnification products, but they're also the North American distributor for a Swedish CCTV company called LVI, and they've had a couple of big companies take runs at them too. So, there does seem to be some industry concentration happening right now, and some serious money behind it. Companies like Essilor, who owns Humanware, they're a massive glasses company, amongst other things. If you've ever had or heard of transition lenses, that's Essilor. They make those transition lenses. That company Essilor is probably considerably bigger than VFO is,
right?
With much deeper pockets. The companies backing these assistive technology companies now are really big, and there's some money to be thrown around from them, which can be a good thing, because if there's development money,
right,
there gets to be more unique and interesting types of assistive technology, which they're going to need to have if they're going to survive, because the mainstream is coming for them.
Yeah.
You know,
That's very true.
The mainstream screen readers are coming after the JAWS market. The mainstream magnifiers are coming after the Zoom text market. There may very well be, in short order, a mainstream CCTV system from, like look at Samsung. They just released a head-worn large print system for that'll compete with the things like the eSight glasses and the Geordie glasses that are out there, and considerably cheaper because it's based around a cell phone and a virtual reality headset that's being mass produced. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with these dedicated AT companies over the next few years, because it's not going to be an easy road to walk down, I don't think, for them.
That's interesting. I didn't even think about that, but I mean, and I'm sure, Enhanced Vision, I'm sure they have, a fairly large research and development arm. And yeah, plugging some money into that. Right now, innovation is king.
Yeah.
That's really what, and especially a company that's exclusively assistive technology, they need some big innovation money, because you're right. You're absolutely right. Mainstream is coming after them. A lot of the mainstream companies aren't just being legislated to be inclusive or to sort of build in accessibility functionality. They're realizing slowly but surely, and this is a good thing, that for the end user, that accessibility can be a very, very successful business model.
Yeah. It's starting to be viewed as a critical feature, which is really what needs to happen. It needs to be, built into pretty much every device right from the ground up.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's different facets to all that. I mean, there is a cost to the idea of inclusion, and as great as inclusion is, it's going to have a cost on accessibility technology companies.
Yep. And there's certainly people out there who are going to applaud that.
Yep.
There's a lot of people out there who are indignant about the amount of money that they've had to spend on accessibility over the last bunch of years.
Sure.
And yeah.
Well, I can understand it. I mean,
so be it.
If you're buying mainstream devices and then you also have to buy something AT related in order to make those mainstream devices function for you, that's unfair. And and I can totally understand how that's frustrating. Especially when you're talking historically about a segment of society who not only have to, they have a disability, but they also might not have the funds to be able to purchase that add-on. So, I mean, there's, inclusion is certainly an important factor in this, but at the same time, I don't know, I feel like a company that focuses on accessibility is going to be able to innovate faster than a mainstream company who is just baking in some sort of accessibility featers into there.
Depends on how many resources that mainstream company throws at it, right?
Right.
Traditionally it's been, kind of an add-on, but of late we're starting to see major resources going into accessibility. Serious coin, serious development, additional employees, additional staffing levels. It's growing, and that's great. That's a good thing, but it will be a challenge for traditional AT companies, my own included. We've got to find ways to innovate if we're going to continue, and we may find ourselves being, at the end of the day, after a certain number of years, we may become irrelevant.
Mm.
Well, and I think, a lot of people harp that they want mainstream technologies to become more and more accessible. And, I totally applaud the mainstream doing what they are doing, but I think we need to put our money where our mouth is as well. It's okay to whine, bitch, and moan that, oh, my TV's not accessible, or it doesn't have talking menus. But there are companies, as of even last year, Philips' 2017 line of Blu-ray players came out with accessibility features like talking menus. So if we aren't out there supporting these mainstream companies with our dollars, what's the incentive for these mainstream companies to keep building accessibility in when
Sure.
nobody's adopting it?
Sure.
Right? It's you can't have it both ways.
Yeah, it's a fair point. So go out there and buy yourself a Philips Blu-ray player.
I've been trying.
What do you mean you've been trying?
I've called Philips twice and they can't tell me where to buy one.
What?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, their marketing is really awful.
jeez.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is interesting. Well,
Same with some Sony Bravia TVs. They're running Android OS, so you can install TalkBack.
right.
And now you're talking smart TV will tell you the Netflix app and
That's-
the YouTube app and
That's pretty slick.
the cable listings guide will talk. So certain models, so we need to support these mainstream companies with our money and show them we appreciate their efforts.
You know what we should do? We should really do a show where we just talk about some of the different mainstream products that have some accessibility baked in, just almost as
a great idea.
of an informational show and out there. Because there's some great work being done, but you generally don't hear about it because a lot of these companies don't know how to market that. But yeah, we should. Let's start making a list and
Checking it twice.
yeah.
Find out who's naughty and nice.
Yeah.
We'll get Can-Ask Tech to give us some demo dollars, buy some demo gear, and then we'll give it away as prizes.
I love Ryan's mind goes right there.
Yeah,
It's just like, no, we can't just talk about it. We need to.
We need
use it.
demos.
I need it.
Yeah.
I need
Okay.
in the guitar
All right.
dungeon.
That's right.
So,
do some
no-
live demos.
No payroll next week.
All right, scrap the demo idea. I need payroll.
Oh, hey, here's one. So SpaceX has set a February launch date for the new Falcon Heavy. The Falcon Heavy is going to be the world's largest booster when it takes off. It's made up of 3 of the SpaceX boosters.
I thought they just launched that last week. I thought there was a launch.
They test fired the engines. They didn't launch it. They were clamped down. But it's oh, sorry, it won't be the most powerful. The Saturn V is still the most powerful, but it'll be able to deliver big payroll. Got payroll on my mind now.
Excellent.
It'll be able to deliver big payloads up into space, and the first one is going to send a cherry red Tesla Roadster from Elon Musk's personal collection into deep space.
More space junk.
Yeah.
Nice. Why?
What?
Yeah, they're firing a car into space. Why not?
See, that's just it's so human of us. Let's just shoot shit into space. Let's just junk it up.
Yeah. Anyway, so
okay, yeah, go ahead.
So these 3 boosters, they're going to fire up there. They're going to drop off and land again, all 3 of them, on platforms, the same way that the SpaceX rockets have been doing for the last little while. But this time, there will be 3 of them landing at the same time instead of just one.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
If it works, actually, even if it doesn't work, it'll be amazing because it'll be great to watch.
Yeah.
Lots of explosions, like a Michael Bay movie.
Yeah. So the question that's been asked is, what happens if it explodes? And
Neatness.
and so far the answer that's come back is it'll probably destroy Musk's Tesla.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm telling you, next 20 years is going to be kind of cool. We're gonna have driverless cars. We could have this renewable rocket thing happening. That's going to be a completely stable and reliable method of space travel. Not that we have anywhere to go. Where are we going to go with?
Well, Musk's whole approach to SpaceX has been really interesting because he almost bankrupted himself creating that company. He put his own money into it after he sold PayPal. He sunk his own money into this company, and he has stated from the outset that he wants to put men on Mars. That's the goal of this company. So you know, this is one more step towards being able to put the kinds of payloads into space that you would need to launch a Mars mission.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I just feel like could be just a giant waste of time. Because, I don't know, there's nothing on Mars. What are we going to do on Mars?
Well, we aren't going to do anything. The next generation might.
What are they going to do on Mars? There's nothing to do there.
There's resources to extract. There's, you know, they could build suitable habitats there. You know, the human life could actually grow on Mars with the right technologies. And if you really want to get fancy about it, you could terraform Mars.
We've got a perfectly good planet here. It works. It's great. You don't have to terraform nothing, and we're destroying it.
Yeah, but we're buggering it up. So, you know.
Well, but that's not the solution.
Let's get out to
bugger up
planet.
another planet.
Start with a fresh slate.
That's right. Start with a fresh slate, bugger up another planet.
See, I think that's the wrong response to this.
Next, we're going to bugger up Jupiter.
Exactly. We got 9 shots at this. Once we get out to Pluto, that's going to be a real bitch to terraform. But
They haven't even gone back to the moon. Pluto's a long shot.
Yeah.
oh, I forgot about the moon. Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess we could.
You populate the moon.
No, you can't. But the moon is literally there's no atmosphere. I remember this from Science 10.
You could have
There's nothing we can do on the moon. We'd have to go.
You can't create your own atmosphere?
I don't know. Maybe.
Sure you can.
Sure. That's what the space station is, right?
It's a lot of work. Why don't we just stop?
Why don't we just stop polluting the planet and limit our population?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Because
Or
we're stupid.
Yes,
maybe we
are.
could just, okay, fine, let's terraform Mars, and then we'll put all the people who want to pollute a planet over to Mars. Let them move. Donald Trump and all his coal mining buddies can go to Mars. Mine all the coal you want, guys. Go
That's right.
crazy. Leave us and the polar bears alone.
It's not enough oxygen there. It doesn't burn right.
Okay, we've got, I have no idea if that's going to stay in or not. We'll see. All right. Hey, Ryan,
Rob,
where can people find us?
the usual place, www.atbanter.com.
They can also email us. I forgot to check the email this week. Have you been checking it?
Yeah, there's nothing there.
Okay. Well, don't say that. Just say we've been so busy we can't possibly read all the email that we got this week.
Well, we got one email.
Anyways, where were we? Okay, so yeah, they can also email us if they so desire, atbanterpodcast@gmail.com.
And rumor has it we're on Facebook and Twitter as well.
Indeed.
Yep.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Where can people find you online?
Well, people can find me if they want to email me. They can email me at steve@canastech.com or find my website at www.canastech.com. And of course, we also have our other sponsor, Rick from Chaos Technical Services, who does all them fancy dancy repairs of assistive technology for people all across the country. And Rick can be found at chaostechnicalservices.com. That's CHAOS, technicalservices.com. Or emailed at chaostech@shaw.ca. You've been Rob Minot.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, thank you. I completely blanked. I was like, what do we do next? Is there something more? You can tell us Monday. Yes, I have been Rob Minot.
And I've been Ryan Fleury.
And I remain Steve Barclay.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and we will see everybody next week.
This podcast has been brought to you by Canadian Assistive Technology, providing low vision and blindness solutions across Canada. Find us online at www.canastech.com. That's CANASSTECH.com. Or call us toll free at 1-844-795-8324. For all your assistive technology servicing needs, call Chaos Technical Services at 778-847-6840 or find them online at chaostechnicalservices.com. Music provided by bensound.com.